In today's video, we're talking about a DUI defense known as salting out. This is the study, where it came from. This has a lot of information on it. It's a little bit of a complicated defense, and so rather than go through all the specifics and all the science, we're going to talk about, in principle, in theory, how this works and how it may be applicable to your case. So in a prior video, we had talked about these Vacutainers. These come from the blood kit that the police will use in a DUI case. When they draw blood out of your body, it goes into a tube like this. In this tube, you have potassium oxalate and you have sodium fluoride. You can see them listed here. And what these are salts. These are salts. One's a preservative, one's an anticoagulant. And they sit here at the bottom of the tube. You can also see here, this says 10 milliliters. Okay, so this is a 10 milliliter Vacutainer. The blood is supposed to come in and fill this up. The salt in here, the argument for a salting out defense is that the salt in here is proportional to a 10 milliliter draw of blood. So the salt, there's enough preservative, there's enough anticoagulant, there's enough salt in here to actually perform a ratio. It's measured and intended to be used with 10 milliliters of blood. Well, in some DUI cases, the police are not able to actually draw 10 milliliters of blood. So the tube, rather than being full, will actually be considerably less. We'll have 2 milliliters or 3 milliliters or 4 milliliters, something much lower than a 10 milliliter draw. And so the theory is that these salts now are acting disproportionately on the sample in the Vacutainer. So let's back up a little bit. When they test a blood sample in a DUI case, they're not actually using this tube. What they'll do is they'll take a blood sample, they'll take the blood from this vial, they'll pipette it, they'll put it into a different tube, and they will crimp that, put that in the machine, and then that will run through and it'll spit out a number for them. That's discussed in other videos. The theory is that what they're actually testing is the headspace. So they're testing the air. If the tube looks like this, they're testing the air above the blood. So in an alcohol case, they're not actually testing the blood. What happens is the blood in the tube, so let's say this is the actual tube they're putting in the machine, the sample is heated up, and then the air will equalize with the reactants in the blood sample. So the alcohol in this case will equalize. It's called Henry's Law, and so there'll be a proportion of alcohol that's in the headspace that's actually in the air. That is there's a ratio between that and what's in the actual blood. Then they'll test that, and then that will give them the number. So they're puncturing the top of the vial, then they're measuring the headspace, the air that comes out of there. The theory is with the salting out defense is that these salts in a short draw, which is what we're calling this, it's a short blood draw because it's not actually 10 milliliters, that the concentration of these salts is actually causing more alcohol to be pushed out of the blood because the concentration of the salt is considerably higher. It was meant for 10 milliliters, but now we're only seeing a 3 or a 2 or a 4 milliliter draw. So the concentration of the salts is considerably higher. Salt pushes out polar molecules, in this case it would be ethanol, pushes those out of a solution, which is essentially what we have here. So then the alcohol would be pushed out of the sample and into the headspace at a higher ratio than you would see if the blood draw had been full. So there are many arguments as to why this is good, why this is a bad defense. Generally, it's something that an expert witness may have some issues with. So it's something that you want to consider before you use it, and you want to have a strategy if you are taking this forward and putting it in front of a jury, because some people may not understand it. It may go right over their heads. The state's witness may not know how to address it. They may know exactly how to address it. You want to be very careful with how you use this defense, and you certainly don't want to use it in the situation where you have a very good draw. So an ideal situation would be where you have a very low blood draw, you have a short draw, so the actual tube that came out, one of two tubes came out, and it's a short draw, meaning the concentration of the salts in one of these tubes is much higher than it might otherwise be. And so that's the general principles of how it works. Like I said, it's one of these defenses that's a little bit out there at times, and it requires a lot of actual diving into the science in order to understand how it works in the lab. but it is something that you can use in your particular case. So if you have a case and you believe there was a blood draw, we have expert witnesses who will take a look at exactly what happened. They'll do a kit investigation. They'll give us an analysis on what we think the blood draw was, whether it was short or whether it was not. And they'll go through and they'll give us a good analysis that we can use in your defense. So if you have a situation like that, if you've been charged with any DUI and you want to explore the salting out defense as one of many other defenses that we can help with, give us a call. Thanks for watching.